Hello, Jacksonites. Take two, and hopefully this is it better now? Maybe. Well, again, take two. Pardon the very long absence. Life has been very busy as of late. But so, after 5 long years of this franchise being dormant on my channel, join me today as I delve back into the Alien and Predator franchises. Yeah, it's been 5 years since me and Trevor Thompson did a big re-review series of the Alien and Predator franchises. Not all of them. There were a few. No, there was only 2 films that me and Trev did not review, but we reviewed the original 4 Alien films, all 4 Predator films, and both of the Alien versus Predator films in great detail. And it culminated in both a ranking video of all 12 films at the time, and also it ended up really culminating in a big, giant, long 31 on 31 video ranking Alien, Predator, Terminator, Tremors, and RoboCop in one big, long list. However, since then, the Alien and Predator franchises have gotten more installments in their franchises. We've gotten 2 for the Alien series with Alien Romulus and Alien Earth, and 3 for the Predator franchise, Prey, Predator Killer of Killers, and Predator Badlands, the last 2 coming out this year. The last 3, counting Alien Earth Season 1, coming out just last year. And now I was very, very skeptical and hesitant to see Alien and Predator's future with Disney. But for the most part, they've had one blunder. But for the most part, Disney has been treating Alien and Predator pretty damn well, in my opinion. Certainly way better than they've been treating Star Wars. Yep, I said it. Pardon Roman in the background. He's very hyper right now. So I thought now would be a good time to delve back into the franchise, rewatch every single movie, and check out the new installments, and give my thoughts on a big re-ranking of the entire franchise from worst to best. Now, why am I choosing now to do a big re-ranking list? Well, for the most part, it kind of does seem like both franchises are on a slight pause. Although Disney seems over to possibly more so onto the Alien side of the franchise for the moment, because Alien Earth Season 2, I believe, just started production. And Dan Trachtenberg, the director of the recent 3 Predator films, has signed a 3-movie deal with Paramount. So unless Disney is going to maybe try to find a director to helm a new Predator film, or they'll find somebody else to make a sequel to Predator Badlands, it kind of seems like the Predator side of the franchise is being paused for the moment. But I'm okay with that, because we do have a fair bit of stuff that's new to talk about. And I can positively say that, so we have a franchise of now 16 films and 1 season of a TV show. So now 17 installments as opposed to 12 originally. And I now can say I do like a vast majority of this franchise. Really, there's only 4 installments of this franchise now that I don't really jibe with. And also, too, I can now, well, I mean, I did definitively say this back in in 2021. But now, even more so, I do definitively say that when it comes to both the creatures and the franchises, Alien and Predator, I very strongly am Team Predator over Team Alien. Because really, I think there is only one Predator film that I think is really lacking. And other than that, like even there's one that I used to really dislike, and now I'm pretty okay with it nowadays. But the Alien series, I think, is pretty wildly hit or miss, in my opinion. It does have some high highs, as we'll soon find out, but it also has the lowest of lows, even lower than the lowest Predator film. So not just because of that too. I also just I do prefer the Yautja or the Predators over the Xenomorphs. I just think they're cooler, they're more fascinating, and the Predator franchise overall is just more my speed. They're more high octane, more explosive, and more action packed for the most part. There's one exception that rivals it. But regardless, I am a big fan of this franchise. And I do say that now officially the Alien and Predator franchises are definitively one and the same because of the existence of Predator Badlands. Which, you know what? I mean, I thought this back in 2021, but even more so, I'm just all for it. I am all for Alien and Predator just being one continuous giant franchise. Okay, hang on. I'm trying to stand my phone up here somewhere. Okay, so let's jump right into this big long ranking list, shall we? Now, if viewers will remember, back in 2021, there was a certain installment in this franchise that I had at the very bottom. Real quick, I do have tea, but I also have some burp fuel. And as usual, kind of like kind of like with my re-ranking the Gamera franchise from some months ago. Yeah, I'm agreeing with Anthony Sarkis here. I'm still hoping that we'll get a third Alien versus Predator film. It kind of seems like Dan Trachtenberg and Fede Alvarez were teasing that as a possibility, but like I said, it seems like Disney is now wanting to shift their focus more towards Alien for the moment. But I do hope we get a third one. But yeah, like my Gamera video that I just did, the bottom of the barrel for this franchise has not changed. My number 17 is still Prometheus. I just cannot get behind this movie. And I just cannot get behind what Ridley Scott was trying to do for the franchise back in 2012. I don't really know what I would. Well, okay, frankly, I just did not want a prequel story to the Alien franchise overall. But whatever Ridley Scott was trying to do with this prequel series, uh, if you ask me, it just seemed like it was doomed to fail from the start. And every time I try to give this movie the benefit of the doubt, I've seen it 3 times now, and every single time I see it, I dislike it more and more. I just can't get behind this film. It's way too metaphysical, it's way too philosophical, it's way too okay, normally I'm not the type of person to really criticize films for this, but if you ask me, this movie was way too focused on being kind of a visual presentation rather than a like interesting story in my opinion. But the story aspects of this film is really where I take issue because as a prequel to the Alien franchise, I don't think this was the case, but it does feel like it might have been some unrelated script that either Ridley Scott or whoever the writer was for this film was trying to do. I don't know what you're talking about, LBT, Electric Dino. Um, Hold on. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Um, yeah, for some reason, no, 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 not that. Sorry. Shit. Oh yeah. So I don't really think this was the case, but I just would not be surprised because it's very obvious with this prequel series that Ridley Scott was more interested in the android and synthetic side of the Alien franchise, and he wanted to explore more of that side of the universe. And not to sound like one of those entitled fanboys, I really hate to sound like those, but I don't care. I genuinely do not give two shits about anything that Ridley Scott wants to do with synthetics. It's called Alien. Well, in this case, sure, it's not called Alien. It's a prequel story leading up potentially to either the reveal or the creation of the xenomorphs. But how Ridley Scott is doing it with this prequel series, I think, is just completely wrong and is also completely disinteresting. Um, yeah, I just don't care. I do not care about um it being revealed that the xenomorphs were created and not just a natural alien species from a distant planet. I just don't care. I cannot get into what Ridley Scott's trying to do with this series. The movie also lacks a lot of action, and it has a lot of unlikable and bland characters. It doesn't really feel at all like it's part of the Alien franchise, in my opinion. It's very slow, it's very draggy and just uninteresting. Um, and the next film does this too, but Prometheus asks a giant slew of questions, and it kind of blatantly refuses to answer like 99% of those questions. And it kind of just feels like, now I am aware that initially Prometheus and Alien Covenant were supposed to be one film called Alien Engineers, but and obviously Fox just wanted a new prequel franchise or prequel storyline. Um so in that sense too, Prometheus um has major first chapter syndrome in my opinion, and it just doesn't work for me. Now, to be fair, to give the film a little bit of credit, it does have a big budget. All the production designs and the sets look really good. The CGI looks good for the most part. Um, when there are snippets that kind of give you visual clues that this is tied to Alien, those are pretty well done. Like it does feel like all the technology and all the ship designs look like they flow um into the original Alien fairly well. Like they use some similar sound effects, they use some similar lighting, some similar designs. So it does sort of feel like Alien in that way. The film is well shot, and probably the biggest highlight of the movie and of how gripping and tense it is when I think Elizabeth Shaw, I think that's her name. Dr. Shaw has that like prototype face hugger creature surgically removed from her uterus. That scene is pretty horrific and pretty gnarly to watch. But aside from that, I just cannot get into this movie. And whatever Ridley Scott was trying to do for the franchise with this film, I mean, the fact that the film was marketed and claiming to be a prequel to Alien, yet only at the very last minute does it really showcase itself as a prequel to Alien, in my opinion, what with that somewhat xenomorph looking creature called the Deacon bursts its way out of the dead engineer. And that's another issue, too. The space jockeys or the engineers were apparently supposed to be showcased a lot more, but they only get a couple scenes to be showcased, and they don't really leave much of an impact, in my opinion. So, yeah, I just cannot get into this movie. I don't know if I want to say it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but certainly as a prequel, it's one of the most unsatisfying and unenjoyable that I've ever seen in the history of prequels. And as is the case, right below that has not changed. At my number 16 is Alien Covenant. Alien Covenant suffers from a lot of the same issues as Prometheus. It does, in very many ways, feel just like Prometheus 1.5. It still has a lot of philosophical, metaphysical, and um, just artsy fartsy elements from Prometheus. It asks its own slew of questions. It answers a few from Prometheus, but it also feels like it. If this was to be a trilogy, I can kind of feel like this movie may have had middle chapter syndrome, where it just kind of feels like it was a stepping stones movie. It was setting up a lot of things for a potential third film to explore and answer, but we just never got that third film. The characters are also just as flat, just as bland, and just as not really unlikable, but they're just really hard to get engaged with because they're just so bland and boring. Horror and Metal is here. Yo, Horror and Metal channel. Um, Now granted, Michael Fassbender, I remembered his name this time. I will agree he does do a good job as David in this film, and the other android that he plays. I can't remember his name. And he does do a good job in Prometheus as well, but I do think he gives a stronger performance in this film. But it also suffers from more of the same issues as Prometheus. It still doesn't fully feel like a proper prequel to the Alien series. And frankly, when the ape, like when we see the prototype eggs, and we see the one xenomorph or no, there's the one xenomorph, and there's the neomorph creature, which looks cool, but also looks, or it's very underused, and it just kind of disappears and seemingly dies randomly and out of nowhere. And the one xenomorph that we do see, it does look cool, but that leads into another major issue with Alien Covenant is that the third act of the film is a very rushed and abridged just retread slash remake of the original Alien. And this really leads into my biggest issue with Alien Covenant because the response to Prometheus was so mixed, and because so many people were pretty much just complaining left and right that this just did not feel like Alien, this was not giving Alien fans what they wanted to see. I feel like that really pissed off Ridley Scott, and he just said, "You know what? Fuck all you." And he, whatever plans that he may have had for the future and for this series, they're left unanswered and still up in the air and in this massive gray area. But Ridley Scott just gave the fans what they wanted in the most basic, bland, bare bones way possible. And I'm sorry, Ridley, but I can't get behind what you were trying to do, and seemingly not very many other people got behind what you were trying to do. Because as well, when Ridley Scott had his opportunity to truly do purely android and synthetic focused storyline stuff with the show Raised by Wolves, the fact that that show got canceled after only two 10-episode seasons and I think it did also too get canceled on a cliffhanger, just goes to show that truly, it's like I said, Ridley Scott's fascination with the synthetics and androids, it just really was not resonating with a lot of people. And I'd have to agree. The more you try to shove and cram this seemingly unrelated storyline stuff along with seeing the perfect organism go around killing people, it's just not going to work. And the harder you try to make it work, the more it's just not going to work. I'm sorry. Now, again, like with Prometheus, I will give the film some credit. It again is very well shot. Um, it looks really good on Blu-ray, which I do have Alien Covenant on Blu-ray. Man, what is up with me having so many of my least favorite installments of franchises on Blu-ray? Alien Covenant, Star Wars Episode 8, Tremors: A Cold Day in Hell. Um, well, I have Predator Badlands on Blu-ray, so maybe that'll finally break the trend. But anyway, so yeah, Alien Covenant, it's well shot. It's got a big budget. There is a little bit more action as opposed to Prometheus. Again, Michael Fassbender gives a really good job, or does a really good job as David and the other synthetic that he plays. I can't remember his name. Sorry. There is some gore, and when the xenomorph goes on its rampage at the very end, I mean, again, it is just an abridged retelling of Alien, but it is at least entertaining to a degree. Like, it is tense, it's bloody, it's violent, it's entertaining somewhat. But therein also leaves another issue with this film. It's got one of the most frustrating cliffhanger endings I've ever seen in this entire franchise. It rivals the cliffhanger ending to Predator's Terminator Genesis and Predator 2018. It's, upon further scrutiny, I think maybe this one might be a little more frustrating than even those two. Now, I've said this before. Had this film maybe gotten a third film and Ridley Scott was just not so bitter and pissed off, maybe some of the storylines in this series could have been wrapped up and he could have given us some kind of satisfying segue into the original Alien. But as it currently stands, because the divisiveness and just dislike of this series was even further raised because of this movie, unfortunately, all of these plot threads and all of these questions are just left unanswered and unresolved. And it's frustrating as hell. Coming in at number 15 is Alien Earth. Now, I'm not going to lie, I really was not initially excited about seeing a TV show set in the Alien series because I'm going to get this right off the bat. I really don't think Alien or Predator are very suitable for TV, in my opinion. I just think they're too cinematic to like try to transition that format to a TV show. I'm sorry, just for me, it just doesn't work. But I tried to give Alien Earth a shot, and I'm sorry to say, but it just doesn't work for me. The main, like, crippling flaw with Alien Earth is how goddamn slowly paced it is. I'm sorry. Modern TV shows today suck because they're just uber extended, segmented movies. And that just doesn't work for me. I prefer TV shows that have a very episodic format. And when you try to just take a concept that is more so fit for a film and you try to transition that into an 8-episode TV season, well, if you're going to do that, have the episodes be shorter. Like with the with Ash versus Evil Dead. You very easily could make all 3 seasons of Ash versus Evil Dead into movies. They'd be long, sure, but they would flow better. But with each episode of Alien Earth being at least 45 minutes long, There is a lot of padding, there's a lot of filler, and there's a lot of slow pacing involved with this show. And for me, it just doesn't work. This is the biggest issue that holds Alien Earth back for me. I think Alien Earth would have been much better off if it was a two-part miniseries on Disney Plus, and if both episodes were 2 hours long. That would have been much more preferable, in my opinion. An 8 episode series with each episode being 45 minutes, nah, it's too much filler. A lot of the characters are very unlikable and uninteresting. Timothy Oliphant is entertaining to watch as, oh crap, what's his name? Kirsch? Is that his name? I think it might be. Oh crap, I think it's glitching out again. Yeah, Kirsch. Um, but aside from him, I think the cast and characters are just pretty unlikable and underdeveloped and uninteresting. The see, it functions as a film in my opinion. It does have some decent moments of suspense, like the one episode that like takes place before the first episode, where it kind of is a remake of the original Alien, but I think it's done better here than what's done in Alien Covenant. It is more suspenseful. It is a little slower paced, so it allows it to be a little more suspenseful and take its time. Um, the special effects are really good, like the suit effects, especially on the xenomorphs, are really solid. The CGI xenomorphs look a little cartoony at times, especially when the xenomorphs are really well lit, like out in broad daylight in the middle of the jungle. I actually think they look slightly cartoony, but you can tell the show has, again, it has a big budget. All the sets and production design looks really good. It does look and feel like the original Alien, and it feels like it's set in that timeline and continuity way more than both Prometheus and Alien Covenant combined. But there's another issue with Alien Earth is that it doesn't really properly feel like a prequel. Like, you'd presume that it's called Alien Earth, so it takes place on Earth, yet it's set before the events of the original Alien, and so you'd assume that it would explore more of the origins of the xenomorphs and how mankind came to, like, first, because in the original Alien, it is pretty obvious that the company knows what xenomorphs are, but the crew of the Nostromo have no idea. So you'd assume that this series would have explored on those origins more, but they don't. All the characters, like as soon as the two xenomorphs are born, they just start calling them xenomorphs and talking about them like they've seen them before. And I'm just like, wait, what? So then what the hell is the point of this series? Um, just to have aliens on Earth and have it set before the events of the original Alien? Are you really so hesitant to do something past the original Alien because you can't get Sigourney Weaver to come back? There are some good kills. There's some good gore. Frankly, I kind of think this show is, in its entirety, it's more gory than Alien Romulus. Call me crazy. And yeah, the effects are good. Again, it's well shot. The production value is really good, but just with how slowly paced this damn show is, that's what really kills it for me. I'm sorry to say, this should not have been a show. You very easily could have chopped this down into a two-part miniseries. Yeah, and it would have been much better, in my opinion. And also, I can't really say I'm a fan of the other alien species that they showcase in this series. They're cool, but they'd be cooler if they were in their own series and not stealing the thunder from the title monster, the xenomorph. Nah, I'm good. And I'm not really sure if I'm all that interested in seeing um Alien Earth season 2. It needs to improve on a lot of shit that they had in this film or this series. But yeah, Alien Earth just doesn't quite do it for me, I'm sorry to say. Excuse me. Coming in at number 14 is the first Predator film on the list, and some people will probably be surprised. My number 14, is Predator Killer of Killers. I'm sorry, guys. I know a lot of people really seem to like this movie, but it just really did not do very much for me. It's not a bad film by any means. Really, I don't think any of the Predator films are bad, but this one just didn't jibe with me the like the others do. Okay, hang on. It's way too quiet in Roman's room. Okay, never mind. You being good? Huh? Okay, excuse me. Um, yeah, Killers. Oh, yeah, Killers just didn't work for me. I don't mind that it's animated, but could you make the animation look better? Because I really just don't dig how this film looks. It looks too Pixar-ish, but at the same time, the animation looks really choppy and almost unfinished at times. Um, and again, I don't really have an issue with it being an anthology film, but again, could you make the segments more interesting? Um, I did like the middle story, the one that takes place during feudal Japan. That is the biggest highlight of this movie. There's hardly any dialogue except for the very beginning and very end. Except for that, there's mostly environmental storytelling and visual storytelling, which is really good. The design of the Predator is really cool. He's got cool weapons, and there's a cool fight scene between two samurai and the one Predator. It's really cool. And there's a cool killing move that they execute on him. Yeah, that one's really good. It feels like Predator versus Samurai Jack, and I dig it. But the first story, taking place during Viking times, when it's just Vikings going around killing people, that's more entertaining. But when it's Vikings versus Predator, it's lame. Only because the design of the Viking Predator is lame. He has no armor. He only has a biomask and a sonic cannon on one of his hands. That's it. That's the only weapon that he uses, and it's lame and stupid. And the third section, taking place during World War II, featuring a very ugly and disfigured Yautja taking on World War II fighter pilots, dogfight style. It just doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. I don't like World War II films, and I really do not like dogfights, like planes battling in midair. That's one reason why I don't like Top Gun very much. It just doesn't work for me. It's very boring, very uninteresting and just very bland. Now we do finally get to see the Predator homeworld, even if it looks a bit different to as opposed to what a lot of other people were thinking that it looked like from that snippet that we saw in Alien versus Predator Requiem. But um and this is also the first time that we ever well, not the very first time, but the first time we see Yautjas speak in extended segments in a film for the first time, which is really appreciated. Um, but I just don't really dig any of the designs of the predators in this movie, even the ones on the Predator homeworld. Their designs are very exaggerated and very just unpleasant and unpleasing to look. Well, I guess that's the same thing. Yeah, just unpleasant to look at. Again, except for the samurai predator, he's got cool gear and he looks cool. But the Grendel King, I think it's called, the main predator that we see on the Predator homeworld, his head's too small, his body's too big, and his arms are too long. I don't really dig that design. And the big issue that I have with Killer of Killers is it's too short. Had they given us a fourth segment at least, or maybe if they were to just focus on this gladiator style combat with these three characters from three completely different time periods learning to work together in this predator gladiator pit. Um, and they just have their backstories as little sections throughout the film, but it's mostly just them learning to work together. That would have been one thing, but it kind of feels like were they just didn't know what they wanted to focus on. Did they want to focus on these characters fighting on and working together on the Predator homeworld, or do they just want to have an anthology style series with various predators fighting different humans throughout different points of human history? Vikings, samurai, World War II soldiers. Then we had Native Americans in Prey, the previous film in the series. Um, what else could we have seen? Well, maybe like a fourth segment could have been predators versus like knights in medieval times, like during King Arthur times or something like that. I think that would have been kind of cool. But yeah, as it currently stands, like Predator Killer of Killers, again, it's not a bad movie, but it really just doesn't work for me in its current state. And also the final tease at the end showing Naru from Prey in suspended animation, but also Harrigan from Predator 2 and Dutch from the original Predator in suspended animation. I appreciate the nod and I appreciate the Easter egg, but for me, it was kind of too little too late. And I think that's the wrong kind of fan service, in my opinion. And also, if we consider Dan Trachtenberg's three Predator films like a trilogy, I think this is the one that has middle chapter syndrome. And also, with it being so short, I kind of feel like this is the most forgettable Predator film of the franchise. So, sorry to say, this one just didn't do it for me. All not again, not to sound entitled, but the real only in thing that I want to see come out of this movie is a full length feature film version of that feudal Japan segment. That's what I really want to see. Yautja versus Samurai. Sign me up, please. Coming in at number 13 is Predators. This used to be my least favorite Predator film, and uh, for a while, I really held it against this movie that it's pretty well. I mean, I kind of still do. I do have to agree with Trev. Yes, this is a remake of the original Predator, straight up. It's trying to be a sequel. Now, I am a fan of Robert Rodriguez, and I am aware that This movie technically is not a Robert. Well, it is, but it also isn't. He didn't direct the film, but I believe he co-wrote the script and he was one of the executive producers. I think he was the executive producer for this film. So to me, it still screams Robert Rodriguez, the same way that Candyman 2021 screams Jordan Peele. Even though that film was not directed by Jordan Peele, it has his fingerprints all over it. And I appreciate that Robert Rodriguez was a fan, clearly, of the original Predator. But therein kind of lies the main issue with Predators. It's only Robert Rodriguez trying to remake the original film and ignore everything else that came before it. Predator 2, Alien vs. Predator, and Alien vs. Predator Requiem. It's just him trying to make us. It almost kind of feels like he's trying to pull a Halloween 2018 and just make this the true proper sequel to the original Predator. And sorry, dude. I'm not buying what you're selling. I like the expansion of the creatures. I like the expansion of the mythology. I like the expansion on the weapons. But to have all the predators go back to just using wrist blades and plasma casters, that's boring. Sure, they include some traps and some other hunting and gathering tactics, but still, I wanted to see more predator tech. Um, and this movie doesn't scratch my itch in that, or doesn't scratch my predator itch in that way. But also the plot itself, despite it being a sequel, it's very derivative and way too similar to the original Predator. Hell, the main character Royce uses the same machete that Arnold uses in the original Predator. A lot of the music sounds very similar to the original Predator, which that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't help in trying to make this movie stand on its own, which it does not. I don't care what Shane Black has stated with this film being set after Predators. Um, this movie kind of shares a similar issue that I agree that Alien Resurrection has. It does feel kind of distant and isolated away from the rest of the franchise. And it's kind of stuck in this weird gray area in the same way that Alien Covenant is. But despite all of that, there are still some good things going for it. It is action packed. It does look and feel like a Predator film, which is appreciated, even if it's trying to remake the original. It's got some good action scenes, even though these motherfuckers still cannot aim, which still drives me nuts. Um, the ending is just a bit of an unsatisfying meh of an ending. Like, it's very obvious that they wanted to do more, but with how this movie just didn't blow up the box office, it's just like, okay, nah, let's try something else. A lot of the characters are just kind of bland and underdeveloped. Good performances, especially Adrian Brody as Royce, and the chick who plays Isabel does a really good job. Topher Grace is painfully miscast and incredibly annoying, and the twist with him being a serial killer comes out of nowhere and mixes with the rest of the film like water and oil. It's fucking stupid. There are some good kills, and there's some really good gore, and the special effects are really good, especially on the predators themselves. And Berserker Predator is a really good antagonist for the film. But okay, I don't know if you guys heard that, but my upstairs neighbors are seemingly dismembering a body. Um, so Predators is a fun film. It has grown on me a little bit since the last time I saw it. I think I would bump up its rating to maybe a 6 out of 10. It's a bit of a weak 6, but yeah, I did dig it a bit more than when I saw it in 2021. But still, I just think it's one of the most forgettable and most middle of the road installments of the Alien and Predator franchises. So, yeah, it's not a bad film, but I just don't jibe with it the way the rest other Predator fans or typical Predator fans do. Coming in at number 12 is Alien Romulus. Now, this was one of the most anticipated films that I had of 2024. And the first time I saw it, while it didn't disappoint, at the same time, it didn't leave a huge impact on me. The first time I saw it, I was mostly just concerned about it being better than Alien Covenant, which it is. It was a nice return to form. It was a nice back to basics type film for the Alien franchise, which I do think the franchise kind of needed. It needed a little bit of a reset, just going back to focusing just on the xenomorphs being just monsters and scary, which this movie does succeed in. Um, and upon rewatching it, it's kind of funny. I liked it a little bit more, but at the same time, I have more issues with the film. So that's why I kind of think Alien Romulus is a bit of a mixed bag. But I do think it leans more towards being positive. And by the way, I should point out Prometheus through Killer of Killers, that is the bottom of the barrel. Those are the bottom 4 installments of this franchise that I just really don't dig. So everything from here on out, I do enjoy and I would rewatch. And Alien Romulus is the least of which, but it is still a good movie. Um, Funny talking about Predators, this movie has a similar issue to that film in that the plot overall is very derivative. Well, not very, but it is pretty similar to the original Alien. Like it's a small crew coming across a derelict spaceship and being hunted down one by one by multiple xenomorphs in this case, but it still looks and feels a lot like the original Alien. Now, I do appreciate that. So this is technically what's called an in-between-quel. That is an actual term. It takes place in between Alien and Aliens, like during that massive 56-year time jump. So in that way, it does feel like in a good way isolated between the well, funny, there is an Alien game called Alien Isolation, which is a really good game. That is a minor issue though. It kind of there are some segments that do kind of feel like they're trying to emulate Alien Isolation, mostly with the face huggers. Though that scene when the 3 characters are trying to walk through that corridor that's infested with face huggers is a really intense and nail biting scene. And that feels like something that's right out of Fede Alvarez's repertoire of skills. And that goes back to something I was going to say earlier. I do appreciate that Fede Alvarez clearly is a fan of the Alien series, and he tries his hardest to emulate the look, style, and feel of the original Alien and transfer that into this movie. And in that sense, he does succeed. But I do think that the film still is a bit too similar. Again, they're on board a derelict spacecraft. There's a small crew and a small group of people that are picked off one by one in dark, slimy, claustrophobic environments. A lot of them are very unlikable and underdeveloped. Really, the only 2 characters that I like in this movie is Rain and Andy. And speaking of which, the guy who plays Andy, he does do a fantastic job. Like at first he comes off like he is autistic. I think that's what they're going for. But then when he gets his upgrade, he like perfectly plays a synthetic character like the good synthetic from Alien Covenant or just any other synthetic you'd see in the rest of the Alien franchise. Like his performance and acting is really, really good. The special effects and production design are really, really solid. Uh, for only an $85 million budget, this film looks phenomenal. And I think it's a shame not win its Oscar nomination for best visual effects. At least it got nominated, but still, it's a shame it didn't win. Because again, the production design, the sets, the special effects are all top notch, fantastic. Some of the best effects of the entire Alien series, in my opinion. Um, Now, the movie does lack a little bit of action, but I think that's because this movie was trying to be more so a horror film rather than a horror action movie, which on one hand I appreciate, but on the other hand, I could have used just a little bit more. Mainly, I could have used more characters. Like if there was 10 characters, we could see a few more kills in the film. That would have been more preferable. Um, the ending does give me some mixed feelings as well. Like I like the appearance of the offspring creature, which looks really cool. And it's a freaky ass looking creature. But it's very underused. It's only saved for like the last 10 or 15 minutes of the movie, and it feels a little too late in my opinion. Even if the effects are really good, they're mostly practical, which is phenomenal. Um, and while I wouldn't say that it feels super sequel bait, at the same time, it feels a little too frustratingly open-ended and vague for my tastes. But and I do think that the film does lack gore. It does earn its R rating, but only just barely in my opinion. There's a lot more creature carnage and creature gore than there is human gore. Again, I think that goes into there's too few characters and there's too few kills for my taste. Yeah, I think 10 people would have been preferable. But still, Alien Romulus was a big pleasant surprise. It was a great return for the Alien series, and hopefully we get a sequel to it sometime in the future. Though it's just a shame that the next Alien project after this was Alien Earth, so ouch. Coming in at number 11 is Alien Resurrection. Surprisingly, this one also has grown on me a little bit. Um, all the issues I have with it from back in 2021 still do stand, and yes, I do agree with Trev that the tone of this film is very inconsistent. On one hand, it tries to be ultra violent, shocking, and grotesque just for the sake of such, and then on the other, it's goofy, comedic and slapsticky almost, and I just don't think that the two sides of that spectrum really mesh all that well. And it's kind of jarring and yeah, just inconsistent and a little off-putting. Yeah, I would have to agree. The xenomorphs feel just like generic 90s monsters, which granted this is a 90s monster movie, but you'd think with this being part of the Alien series, which is much more highbrow in terms of the sci-fi horror genre, at this point it kind of does feel just like a generic 90s monster movie. Um but at the same time, this could have just been the mood that I was in. But if you just wanna watch a '90s monster movie, this movie is entertaining as hell. It's got a lot of kills. It's got amazing special effects, great set designs, and great practical effects. There's a little bit of dated CGI, but at the same time, they use CGI in a smart way that's very minimal, which I think is appreciated. Um There are some good performances, even if you can kind of tell that Sigourney Weaver was very disinterested at this point. I think she still does give a good performance, especially the scene when she sees all the previous clones and she kills them all. That's both effectively disturbing, to quote James Rolfe, and effectively fucked up in a good way, if that makes any sense. Though I still cannot to this day watch the scene when the newborn gets killed. I can't do it. Cannot watch that scene. One of the most disturbing and fucked up scenes in any film that I've ever seen. Like, god damn. Though speaking of which, funny, the newborn kind of has a similar issue that I have with the offspring from Alien Romulus. And funny that both of these movies is essentially aliens kind of in on a ship in space, and they both have time limits of ships that are gonna crash into something and explode. Damn, so maybe Alien Romulus rips off Alien Resurrection more than it does the original Alien. Hmm. But anyway, um, there are some fun action scenes. There are some really good funny moments. Who are you expecting? Santa Claus? Huh! 1 minute Ron Perlman shooting a spider with a gun. And of course, my favorite. We want to make any decent progress. I suggest we ditch the cripple. No offense, man. None taken. Yeah, if you want to watch an entertaining mid to late 90s creature feature, Alien Resurrection does scratch your itch. Although now that I'm actually thinking about it, Alien Resurrection also has an extremely frustrating cliffhanger ending. God damn it, guys, can you progress the franchise past this point, please? Please. Fuck it. Do Aliens versus Predator versus Terminator. Maybe that'd be a good way to bring back the Terminator franchise. Fuck. Um, so yeah, Alien Resurrection 2 has grown on me a little bit. It does have some flaws. And yeah, I would also agree. Probably this movie's possibly biggest problem is it does feel isolated and separated and disconnected from the rest of the franchise. Like it takes place in such a huge time jump into the future, 200 freaking years after the events of Alien 3. Well, actually, uh, I'll talk about that later. But yeah, I do agree that it feels very distant from the rest of the series. But again, still, it is a fun 90s creature feature. And if that's what you want to watch, and that's usually what I want to watch, then okay, I'll take it. Cool. Coming in at number 10 is the original Alien. Now, not to say that. Oh, Anthony Sarkis is saying I actually got to meet Ron Perlman last year. You spelled his name wrong, but cool. What's he like? Did you talk to him about this movie? I wouldn't be surprised if he barely remembers doing Alien Resurrection. Now, not to say that the original Alien is the most middle of the road installment in this franchise. It's not, but the one thing that kind of holds this movie back, and the one reason why it's low-ish on the list, is because it's the oldest film of this franchise. It's the most 70s because it was made in the 70s. So it's the most slowly paced. And like Jaws, I think you have to be in a certain mood for this movie to be truly effective because of how slowly paced it is. However, when that mood does strike and when the pacing does work for you, Alien is one of the scariest monster movies you will ever see, in my opinion. The suspense is almost unbearable. The story, well, definitely, obviously, having its roots planted in 1950s B monster movies, and I mean, yeah, it almost is a remake of It, The Terror from Beyond Space. Um, Alien is still effective. Like, just because something is cliche, if you do it well and if it's well made, obviously those cliches exist for a reason because they work, and Alien does work. And of course, it showcases one of the most iconic and scariest monsters in cinema history, the xenomorph. It's got really good effects. It's got a great cast of actors. Ian Holm, Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, John Hurt, Yaphet Kotto. Damn, half of this movie's cast is dead now. John Hurt's dead. Ian Holm's dead. Yaphet Kotto's dead. What's his name? Oh crap! The guy who plays Brett, he's also dead. And I'm pretty sure Jonesy the cat is dead now too. So yeah, Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, and Tom Skerritt are the only ones who are still alive. More than half of this movie's cast is dead. What the fuck? Damn. But it's got, yeah, a great cast of characters, even if a lot of them are kind of unlikable and annoying. Amazing suspense, amazing tension, great special effects, especially for the time. You know, great first showcasing of the xenomorph. Yeah, it's a classic. It's a classic 70s horror movie. It's a classic sci-fi horror movie. It's just a classic. But kind of like with a lot of other first installments and franchises, there's simply more of the franchise that I like more than the original series or than the original film. It's a great start to a pretty good franchise, at least on the Alien side. Well, no, I would say that for the most part, in counting the Predator films, um, sorry, that's really annoying. Actually, hang on, let me shut the door. I don't know how much better that is, but hopefully it's something. Well, I can still hear him. um, but yeah, it's a great start for the franchise, but there's just other installments in both franchises that I like more. And surprisingly, I never thought that I would actually say this, but coming in at number 9 is Alien 3. Yeah, I do like Alien 3 a little bit more than the original Alien. Trev really has had a large influence on me and large impact on me, hasn't he? Now, yeah, the film is bleak and sad and depressing. Hicks dies, Bishop dies, Newt dies, and in the end, Ripley dies. And it is a shame that this film had such a troubled and tumultuous production, and it is a shame that David Fincher has completely disassociated himself with the film. Even though if you watch Alien 3 and you watch David Fincher's other films like Seven or Zodiac, you can still obviously tell, yeah, this is where David Fincher got his start. Um, it's got a huge cast of characters and a huge crap ton amount of kills. It's very violent and gory. It is fairly action packed still. It is still tense and riveting and gritty. Um, Sigourney Weaver does give a really solid performance for the most part. There are a couple moments where her waning interest in the franchise is pretty obvious and evident. That though could have been the troubled production of the film, like sort of weighing her down. Um, and I can see why this movie probably was not a very satisfying third chapter for audiences. I mean, I was one of those people for a long time. But I still do think that Alien 3, it's a good movie. It is a worthy part of the Alien franchise, even if it may not be the most satisfying. Oh, it's also got, of course, really good special effects, except for the blue screen rod puppet effects. I mean, obviously, because this is the only film where that kind of special effect was showcased in an Alien or Predator film. So obviously, people just really didn't resonate with it, and it's pretty obvious why. But yeah, for the most part, the practical effects are all really good. There's lots of good gore. There's lots of good kills. There are some good characters. The music is fantastic. And even if it may not be what you want to see Ripley do, the scene when she sacrifices herself to save the universe, especially in the theatrical cut, I actually think the ending is the how Ripley dies is the only scene in the theatrical cut that's better than the assembly cut, in my opinion. But regardless, especially with this film's fantastic score, I would have to agree that with James Rolfe in that the ending to this movie is epic. And yeah, I do think Alien 3 is a very underrated and a very misunderstood and underappreciated installment of the Alien franchise. And it's kind of funny how we go from one side of the franchise that had a troubled production, and we go to the other side of the franchise that also had a troubled production. Coming in at number 8, I don't think this quite makes it the middle of the road, but coming in at number 8 is The Predator, or Predator 2018 as I've started calling it. Um yeah, both installments next to each other that had the most troubled productions. Despite the fact that we still don't have an alternate extended cut of this film, which admittedly that is the biggest thing that elevates Alien 3 for me. Like had we only gotten the theatrical cut and we never had the assembly version of the film, Alien 3 probably would be in the top 5 weakest of the franchise. And you'd think the same for Predator 2018, but the Predator fan base fucking sucks. I don't give a fuck what anybody says about Predator. Well, fuck. One second, guys. I'll be right back. One under the sink. Careful where you aim in this bag. Here? No. It's time to play watching anyway. I'm sorry, guys. Parental duties. This is why I need a co-host. Or an editing software. Okay, so it is a shame that to this day we still have not seen an extended or alternate cut of Predator 2018, and it's a shame that this was the one installment of the Predator series that the studio decided to force their hands and interfere with a lot of what Shane Black was trying to do. And it's a shame that this is one of the least liked installments of the entire franchise, as deemed by the rest of the other Predator fans. Oh, God. Predator fan base fucking sucks. I don't give a fuck what really anybody has to say about this movie. Now, the film does have flaws. The autism plot point of this movie is the biggest issue and is the biggest blunder of the entire Predator franchise, in my opinion. It just doesn't make sense and it does not work. I'm sorry. I don't care what you say. Nah, it just shouldn't have been here in the first place. And Rory himself is annoying as fuck. Even if he was just a kid in the film, I still would have an issue with him because I just don't think kids really need to be main characters in Predator films, in my opinion. Or, well, no, they kind of work more so with Alien-ish. Um, the special effects are very inconsistent, namely the CGI. The fugitive predator is killed off way too quickly and way too early on in the film. Um, but you know what? I don't give a fuck. Predator 2018 is a fun time. It's got some hilarious lines and hilarious jokes and characters. I like the camaraderie and the kindred spirit with all the characters. The loonies are all freaking hilarious. There's some great action scenes. When the effects are good, they're really, really solid. The breakout scene with Fugitive at Project Stargazer is one of the best scenes in the movie. There's some good gore. It's quite violent. You know what? I think this is a Predator fan's wet dream, in my opinion. And it does the opposite that Robert Rodriguez was trying to do with Predators, where Robert was trying to isolate Predators and make it the only true sequel. Shane Black was trying to make The Predator like the ultimate Predator fan's dream. It acknowledges every installment, even the first Alien versus Predator. So I guess by extension, Alien versus Predator Requiem, and like it makes all those part of the series, except for Predators. I don't really think there's any mention of Predators throughout the film. So you'd think the rest of the fan base would love this movie, but obviously they don't. Me and Trev seem to be the only champions for it. I do think that over time, Predator 2018 will also develop its own fan base, although I think it might take at least a decade more for it to find its fans because people just still shit all over it. Sorry, hang on. That's very loud. Um, but yeah, overall, Predator 2018 is a good time. The Predator fan base fucking sucks. I don't give a shit what they all have to say about it. I think it's a good movie. Coming in at number 7 is Prey. I don't. So top 7 territory. Cracking open the second fuel. Well, there's one movie that I do have quite a few issues with, but top 7 territory, this is when the franchise is going to get really fun. And I don't think there's really a bad film for the rest of the series here on out. So coming in at number 7, yes, is Prey. Prey is a damn good movie. Now, as I said earlier, I was very hesitant and very skeptical about Disney taking over specifically Predator because I am more of a Predator fan. Um, I was concerned that Disney was going to try to make a PG-13 Predator film with just predators hunting humans. And if they were going to do that, I was going to be very unhappy. But Disney showed a first good hand with the Predator franchise, and they gave us a solid R-rated Predator film. Like Alien Romulus 2, Prey does feel like a good soft reset for the franchise. Like it's again back to basics. It's just a lone predator hunting humans on planet Earth. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. And it does it in a better way that Predators was trying to do. It doesn't just give the feral hunter, as I think it's called, just a set of wrist blades and a plasma caster. Actually, they, in a good way, they kind of, well, actually, I don't think they give the feral hunter a different kind of projectile weapon. I think they're called, well, I just think they're called homing darts, but they give them a different kind of projectile weapon that I think is really cool. Um, but this feels like an older, well, not an older Predator, but this feels like obviously it's set earlier in the timeline of the Predator series. It's set in the early 1700s, and it gives the Predator appropriate weapons, feeling like older Predator technology. And but they still give us new things, and they showcase some new weapons that I think are really cool. A prototype plasma caster, a different um, set of wrist blades, just different styled weapons like the blade shield, which I think is probably my favorite weapon, a prototype combi stick, which I also think is really cool. Yeah, the feral predator I think is really cool. The first Disney Predator is pretty badass. There's some good kills. There is some good gore. There's some like the one dude who gets a bear trap thrown at his face and he has it ripped off. That one's pretty gnarly. Um, yeah, the action scenes are really entertaining. Naru is a very likable protagonist, and I do like how she obviously is still drastically like outclassed by Farrell, but I do think this movie does a better solo human versus solo hunter battle that than the original Predator. Naru is very obviously outclassed in strength, but she uses wits and skills to her advantage, and she's of course successful in killing Farrell in a believable and well done way, in my opinion. She is also likable. Her chemistry with her family, specifically her brother, is really good. Um, Special effects are really good. For the most part, I do think when Farrell is first unmasked, that the CGI for Farrell's face looks a little cartoony. When he gets his mask shot off at night, his face looks a lot better because it's more darkly lit. But yeah, the special effects for the most part for Farrell are really good. It's obviously a guy in a suit with just a little bit of CG enhancements. Again, there's some good kills, especially when Raphael, I think his name is, Farrell steps on his one good leg and then he just shanks him with his wrist blades. And that one, the fat French trapper dude gets his head chopped off. That's a good one. I do have a similar issue with Alien Romulus that I think this movie. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say it's tame because there are still some good kills, but I probably would say this is the least violent R-rated Predator film. And yeah, I just think that the kills could have been a little gorier and they could have been more in focus, in my opinion. Because a lot of them, they're kind of, you see people get killed in the background, which is a little annoying. Um, but still, Prey is a damn solid movie. It's also one of the shortest of the franchise, because not counting the end credit scene, I think it's like 92 minutes. So I think it could have been a little longer, but still, Prey was a damn good return to the Predator franchise and is a damn solid first outing for Dan Trachtenberg with the Predator franchise. Coming in at number 6, you guys are probably going to think I'm crazy for having this be so high. Yeah, horror and metal, you really, really need to see Prey. And also check out Predator Badlands. You'll see where that is on my ranking. Coming in at number 6 is Alien vs. Predator Requiem. This movie has grown on me quite a bit since 2021. I do think I was too harsh on the film back in 2021. Now, granted, don't get me wrong, the issues with AVPR still stand. A lot of the characters are unlikable, and a lot of the acting is pretty bad. Um, it obviously has a bit of a lower budget as opposed to the first Alien versus Predator, which does show in some ways. Um, I really could have done without the kids and the babies being eaten and face hugged, and the pregnant women being impregnated with face huggers. Really could have done without that. It has a bullshit cliffhanger ending. And the biggest issue of all, it's too goddamn dark. Like, fuck, I don't know. It's either this, Godzilla 2014, or The Relic. Those are three of the most dimly lit movies I've ever seen in my life. But it's like what Trev said, and same issue with Godzilla 2014. If I could actually see the damn movie, all these other, or most of them, I still really could have done without the pregnant women being attacked. But if I could actually see the damn movie, all these issues wouldn't be so bad. But it's just like an overall dampener for the entirety of the film, and it just doesn't click. But like Predator 2018 and Alien 3, Requiem I do think is an underrated and misunderstood, not really misunderstood, but I do think it's still underappreciated amongst the rest of the Alien and Predator fan base. Because I think it has a lot more good stuff going for it as opposed to what most other people would say. It is gory and it is violent, and when the goriness and violence works, it does work. It does feel like an 80s monster movie released in 2007, which I dig. I love 80s monster movies, of course. The special effects are still really good. The practical effects, at least, are really good. There's some great action scenes. There's some great kills. Um, this even more so as opposed to Predator 2018 is an even more so like fan friendly Alien and Predator film because of all the nods and homages to previous movies, what with the music, sound effects, the classic Predator infrared vision. Like, this is a Predator and Alien fan's wet dream. And if you are more so a Predator fan, this movie is geared more towards those kinds of people because Wolf is one badass motherfucker and one entertaining ass motherfucker to watch. The Pred Alien is also a great addition to the franchise, and of course, people surely have wanted to see a hybrid of Alien and Predator for like since day one, and I think this movie perfectly executes a Predator and Alien hybrid. Yeah, AVPR is a very underrated film amongst the Predator actually, I probably would say it's the most underrated because Predator 2 does have a larger fan base as opposed to what it used to even back in 2021. But a lot of people still shit all over Requiem, and I think that's kind of a shame. Flaws aside, of which it still does have, yeah, Requiem is a good time. And it's a shame we never got a third AVPR movie or Alien versus Predator film, I should say. We all want to see a king xenomorph, damn it. Although I don't think it should have wings. But on the other side of the spectrum, coming in at number 5 is Alien versus Predator. Yeah, I still do think this is the better of the two Alien versus Predator films. Not by a whole lot, because I don't like that this film, even if it's unrated cut, it's still obviously PG-13. And Paul W.S. Anderson is obviously still mainly an Alien fan. And it's kind of funny how of the three real, or I guess four really big, um, or no, five. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, King Kong versus Godzilla, Freddy versus Jason, Alien versus Predator, and Godzilla versus Kong. I think this is the only one of those five films where the monster I prefer, I guess technically overall, is the loser, because the first two Predators are almost immediately killed off once they're introduced, and Scar makes it to the end, but he's dealt the first killing blow by the Queen Xenomorph, and then the Queen Xenomorph is just dragged to the bottom of the ocean. So, yeah, I would say that the aliens are the winner in this movie, because in Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, it's kind of left ambiguous. Hmm. I don't really know who'd be the winner in that one. But there it's left ambiguous. In King Kong versus Godzilla, well, Kong never showed up for the rest of the Godzilla franchise, not counting King Kong Escape, so I guess by default, Godzilla's the winner. Freddy versus Jason, it's still left ambiguous, but I still count it as a win for Jason because he has more of a body and he lands the more grievous wounds. Well, I guess Alien versus Predator also counts. I still say that's more a win for Predator. And in Godzilla versus Kong, Godzilla does defeat Kong. So yeah, I think this is the only one where the monster I prefer loses. But oddly, it does still work for me because Scar is one of my favorite Predators of the entire franchise. I like the characters. If you want to count this as a prequel to the Alien series, I think this is a way more satisfying prequel than anything that Ridley Scott and Disney have been trying to do recently. Um, yeah, it's got amazing special effects. It does have good gore for the monsters, at least. And when it is Alien versus Predator, it delivers on Alien versus Predator. The Queen Xenomorph is awesome. She looks fantastic, and she's entertaining as hell to watch. Um, yeah, Alien versus Predator, in its own way, too, I think is a very underrated and underappreciated installment. It's called Alien versus Predator, and it most definitely delivers on Alien versus Predator. Coming in at number 4 is the original Predator. Rest in peace, Carl Weathers. Um, Now, and I'm not going to talk about this very much because I have gushed about this movie several times, including in my most recent top 15 favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. Um, it's a classic. There's no denying it. The original Predator is a classic. It's a great film. It's one of Arnold's best movies. It's one of the best 80s action films of all time. It is one of the best 80s creature features. I still say the one problem that I have with the original Predator is the final fight between Dutch and the Jungle Hunter. I understand what they're going for. They're trying to have Dutch like have to use his skills and his wits and his strategy and ingenuity to take down the Jungle Hunter because, as mentioned, Yautja on average are 3 to 5 times as strong as the strongest humans. I still don't care. I don't care any explanation or justification you could come up with. I don't care. Arnold is a fucking juggernaut in this movie. So I still think they could have showcased, even though, yes, the Jungle Hunter is stronger than Dutch. Dutch is still a special forces soldier. Why can't he use his own knowledge of hand-to-hand combat against the jungle hunter? Like, land a few good punches and kicks. Why doesn't he hold on to, like, fuck? They teach you in the military, your knife is one of your most valuable possessions in your entire arsenal. They teach you so many tricks with just a knife to keep you alive out in the jungle, especially with him knowing jungle warfare. Your knife is one of your most important tools. Why can't he use that against the jungle hunter? Like, chop off one of his hands, stab him in a leg, or like stab him through his shoulder, get a couple good cuts and gouges all over him before getting his ass kicked. Why can't Arnold just put up a bit of a better fight once the mask comes off? Because as it currently stands, Arnold just gets the living shit beaten out of him in the end. And frankly, it's kind of pathetic. And the more and more I watch this movie, the more and more I just can't get behind this. I can't get behind the ending. But that aside, Predator is still a classic. It's got some of Arnold's best one-liners of his entire career. Stick around. Knock, knock. You one ugly motherfucker. And his battle cry challenging the jungle hunter to a final duel is one of the most badass and manliest moments in any 80s action movie. Love the original Predator. It is a classic. But there's just 3 more in this franchise that I like more. And that final fight, I can't do it. Coming in at number 3, this is the biggest pleasant surprise of the entire franchise. Coming in at number 3 is, by the way, the top 5 of this list. All of these are some of my favorite films of all time. And this being the newest edition, my number 3 is Predator Badlands. Predator Badlands blew my fucking mind. This was... Hold on, I gotta go check something real quick. Excuse me. Had to take the leak too. Okay. Damn it. Oops. Okay. Last interruption, I promise. Fuck, it better be. Yeah, Predator Badlands blew my fucking mind. And this was the biggest surprise that came out of 2025. I mean, I didn't think I would hate the film, but I did not expect to like it as much as I do. This is such a fresh, new breath of fresh air for the Predator franchise. Now, I do want to I do want to state I do still want to see R-rated Predator films for the future. I do want to still see predators hunting humans and fucking them up as their idea of tourism. I do not want to see PG-13 predator films with them hunting humans. If Disney starts doing that, then I'm going to have a problem. But Predator Badlands in its current state and this film introducing a new side of the Predator franchise that I would love to see explored is, like I said, a huge breath of fresh air. It's got really good special effects. It's got amazing action scenes, great cinematography. This is probably Dan Trachtenberg's best work, or like it's his best of his three Predator films, but in terms of its cinematography and camera work, it looks the best. Prey looks really good too, but I think Badlands still trumps it. I love the dynamic between Deck, the main Predator, and Thea, played by Elle Fanning. And with this movie, as far as I'm concerned, firmly cementing Alien and Predator being in the same continuity, in the same franchise, I welcome it. Predators versus synthetics, Wayland Yutani synthetics. Yeah, I'm down. It's got some fantastic action scenes, a great new planet, and great new slew of creatures for the Predator to go up against. It is very different as opposed to other Predator films, which is why I do consider Predator Badlands to be the anti-Predator film. But in this case, in a good way, in my opinion. Um, yeah, there's really, I mean, I do kind of wish the movie was a little longer. I wish there was more creatures that Deck went up against. And just overall, because the movie is so good, like here's an example. I didn't see it in theaters. I would have loved to see this in theaters. But when it came out on digital, Meadow pleasantly surprised me by getting it on digital. And by the time, like the opening scene, like the first 20 minutes, by the time that went by, I was sold. And by the end of the film, I was like, oh, this is one of my favorite films of all time now. And so it's been on Blu-ray and on digital for a little over a month, and I've already watched it 12 times. That's how much I dig this movie. Predator Badlands kicks ass. I could not have asked for a better Predator film. I don't care that it's PG-13. They make it work. It's still entertaining, and it still delivers on badass Predator kills. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. This movie kicks ass. And this is like proof of me saying, okay, yeah, Disney's treating Alien and Predator pretty damn well. Don't give a fuck what anybody says. And yeah, Badlands, I still have not seen Avatar Fire and Ash, but for the moment, I'm going to say Predator Badlands is the best movie of 2025. This is awesome. And moving on to Predator 2, funny is damn, my all of my tops, well, that's a little debatable considering 6 and 5 are also Alien films, but Predator 2 is my number 2. This is definitively my favorite Predator film. Yes. I like the expansion of the creatures. I like the expansion of the weapons. I like how violent this film is. This is well, I will now say that there are a couple scenes where I wouldn't say it's obvious, but now knowing that this movie was almost NC-17 and they had to chop it down to an R rating. there are a couple scenes where you can tell, but still, I this is one of the most underrated and underappreciated and well, not quite as much as it used to be because like I said, I think this movie does have a much stronger fan base amongst the rest of the Predator fan base. But I still do think this movie is pretty underappreciated and underrated. And I do think that it does kind of suffer from being in the shadow of the first Predator film. But in my opinion, this movie doesn't eclipse, but it does surpass the original Predator. Yeah, the effects are fantastic. The music, by the way, going back to Predator Badlands, it's got the number one greatest score, like better than Alien 3, better than Aliens, better than really anything else that the franchise has put out. Even the score for Aliens, which I really like, but Predator Badlands has one amazing fucking score. Oh my god. Nangen Roy Da Jor. Fans of Badlands should know what I just did. Done died Nihil. Um, but yeah, the score for Predator 2 is still really good. Um, Great kills, great gore, great performances by what's his name? Danny Glover and Gary Busey. I still appreciate the Lethal Weapon vibe that this film has. Um, Yeah, I love Predator 2. Probably the most nostalgic, or at least one of them for this entire franchise, and is just endlessly quotable, endlessly rewatchable, and endlessly entertaining. Predator 2 kicks ass. And it's funny that my number one is also a number two. But yeah, my number one is still Aliens. What else can I really say? Aliens is a masterpiece. Outside the Avatar franchise, I do think that this is James Cameron's best movie. Um, some may say that Aliens does have Terminator 2 syndrome and that it overshadows the rest of the franchise. Well, I don't fully agree with that opinion too, because I still think because Aliens is such a good movie, there are still other installments of the Alien franchise that come close. I do think Alien 3 comes pretty close to matching its level of quality, as does Alien versus Predator. But Aliens is just a truly special film. And yes, I do still, yeah, to this day prefer it over Terminator 2. Not to say that Terminator 2 is a bad movie, of course it's not, but you know, as time goes on, I do find myself leaning more towards Aliens. It's got an amazing cast, an amazing score, amazing special effects, some good kills, some good gore, some good scares, some great suspense, amazing characters. Ripley is at her most badass in this movie and is the ultimate like badass female girl boss, especially of the entire franchise. Although Thea and Naru, I do think come pretty close. It's a shame that Sigourney Weaver did not win her Academy Award nomination, or I think it was the Oscar, whichever one it was. It's a shame that she didn't win, but it is cool that she still did get a nomination. Um, Amazing special effects. The Queen Xenomorph is awesome. Great action scenes. This is just a great, 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 great movie. Following in the footsteps of the original Alien being a groundbreaking film, especially for its time, Aliens comes around and becomes groundbreaking and even more iconic in its own right, surpassing the original Alien, in my opinion. So, yeah, there's really nothing bad I can say about Aliens. It's a masterpiece and is one of my favorite films of all time. And I think it's one of the greatest films of all time ever made. James Cameron, he knows how to make good movies. Well, hopefully this turns out better. Pardon all the interruptions and pardon all the stuttering. I'm really sorry that my content has been non existent and glitchy for like this whole year almost. To quickly go through the list again. So at number 17, we have Prometheus. 16, Alien Covenant. 15, Alien Earth. 14, Predator Killer of Killers. 13, Predators. 12, Alien Romulus. 11, Alien Resurrection. 10, The Original Alien. 9, Alien 3. 8, Predator 2018. 7, Prey. 6, Alien vs. Predator Requiem. 5, Alien vs. Predator 2004. 4, The Original Predator. 3, Predator Badlands. 2, Predator 2. And 1, Aliens. And yeah, you can definitely tell that I'm a Predator fan, considering my top 7 are almost all Predator films. Now, I do plan on doing full-length reviews for all of the newest installments of the Predator franchise, but those aren't coming quite yet. I want to have a guest reviewer for at least 2 of them. But I also have something else that is weighing down on me at the moment. But again, apologies for the absence and apologies for all the glitches and interruptions. Hopefully this is still an entertaining list. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your friends. And remember, in space, no one can hear you scream unless you become the ultimate hunter. And what is that thing that is weighing down on me? Well, it's a dead issue, I'm afraid. And I will see you guys in the next video.